After the birth of our second child, my wife Robin fell into a deep depression, and this is the 80s, so everybody just wrote it off as postpartum depression, okay? But it was more than that. It was full-blown bipolar disorder. And here came medicines and hospitalizations and emotional and mental and spiritual darkness. I'm gonna give her credit. She did everything right. We did everything we knew to do. We prayed, we fasted. We had the elders of our church pray for us, lay hands on us, anoint us, whatever it is. We went to doctor after doctor. We went to psychiatrist after psychiatrist. She took the medicines, all right? And they would work for a while, but if you've ever been through this, they work for about this long and then everything changes. You gotta go find a new cocktail to take, right? This is not what we thought life and marriage and parenting would look like. Nothing worked except one thing. God's grace was sufficient. And Robin would tell you, when Robin was weak, God's grace is the only thing that held her together when all she could do was curl up in a ball between the wall and the bed and groan. So we kept on. We continue to pray for healing. And as of now, 35 years later, the answer has been no, the depression stays. So Robin's prayer has been, God, please use this horrible journey to help somebody. Use Robin's journey to tell others that God's grace is sufficient, that the depression, please listen, Christians, is not because you don't have enough faith. And depression is not punishment for some past unresolved sin in your life. And sometimes God answers prayer through one of several ways. We call them the big three. Sometimes it's all God, people, prayer, and pills. We do them all. I don't know which one works, but we're not gonna quit any of them. We need people in our life. We need a connection with God. And sometimes God works through medications, all right? That's not bad faith. That's just God. And when Robin first shared that story at Flatiron 16 years ago in the feed store across the street, listen, from that moment on, it is still the most watched and requested message in the history of Flatirons. So our prayer is, God, if the healing's not coming this side of heaven, then please use it to help somebody else that's going through it.
So I've asked my wonderful wife, Robin, to come just tell us where God is in the midst of pain. Rob, come on up. Can you welcome her? She's a little nervous.
Like that's gonna help. I'm terrified. Hi, my name is Robin Bergen, and I'm bipolar or manic depressive. I start with the words of the 12-step program because Jesus described the church as a hospital for sick or broken people, a place where people can be real, authentic, imperfect, and flawed, as well as accepted, supported, loved, and cared for. Everybody needs a place like this. Wonderful Christian parents raised me. I wasn't abused. I didn't have a bad childhood. There's no deep, dark, painful secret in my past to explain why I'm bipolar. I grew up in the church. I had a 5-year perfect attendance pin in Sunday school when I was only 6 years old. Looking back, the first time I remember depression striking was my junior year of college. In fact, that's about the same time I started dating Jim. I went to the counselor and I told him that I was going home. I didn't have the strength to get out of bed. He talked to me and helped me deal with some grief issues surrounding the death of my dad, and things got better for a while. After the birth of each of my children, I suffered severe bouts of depression, but I wrote it off as postpartum blues. Life really came crashing down shortly after we moved to Louisville, Kentucky, when Jim took the job of senior high pastor. I remember showing up at church on my 30th birthday. It's a crowded church, crowded parking lot, 2 preschool children in the rain, and I thought, why are all these people smiling? I tried to fake it for a while, but shortly after returning from a mission trip to Jamaica, things began to fall apart fast. I retreated to my bedroom, or my cocoon, and I pulled the blankets over my head, and I began to shut down. Before long, my only goal was to be out of bed and dressed before my kids came home from school. And when I couldn't, Jim did his best to explain to the kids that Mommy is sad in her heart, and they did the best that they could. Depression is lonely. I just couldn't be around people. They were happy and I wasn't, and I didn't have the energy anymore to pretend. After stiff-arming people, turning down invitations, or not showing up time and time again because of the depression, pretty soon everybody quit calling, quit inviting, and we were always saying no. And after a while, we didn't have any friends, and friends were what we needed. We didn't understand what was happening, and how could we expect anyone else to understand? Work was impossible. How many times can you call your boss and say, hey, I can't make it in today, I'm sad? I stopped going to church. I started missing my kids' programs and games, and I shut down further and further. And as I sank further and further into the pit, Jim went into what we call function mode. He had to be both mother and father to the kids. He cooked, he cleaned, he carpooled, and he tried to run a youth ministry. Jim's a fixer. If he saw I was depressed, his first response was to clean the house or to do laundry. Maybe that would make me feel better. It didn't. It only made me feel more guilty. I wasn't the person I wanted to be, the wife I wanted to be, the mom I wanted to be, or the Christian I wanted to be. I began to think I'm ruining everyone's life. They would be so much better off without me. I just wanted to die. I thought about it all the time. Things came to a head one Wednesday afternoon. Jim came home from lunch to find me wedged between my bed and the wall in hysterics, begging God to let me die. I couldn't do this anymore. My doctor put me in the hospital to try to adjust my medications. This gave me at least a temporary break from performing, but I knew I'd have to go home soon. The next several years were just a roller coaster of emotions, psychiatrists, doctors, and constantly changing medications. Nothing really worked well for long. My form of depression has two phases: a manic or hyperactive phase where I get a little crazy. I can't sleep, my mind races, I get obsessive and compulsive. Looking back, we can laugh at some of it. Like the time I was feeling really manic and wrapped all of our Christmas presents in an hour at 4 o'clock in the morning. Or the time I found a book called Cooking for a Month and cooked all the food in the house one afternoon. Or the time I took a drug called lithium that slowed everything down. And I remember driving Jim back to work, and he asked, how fast are you going? And I calmly looked down at the speedometer and said, 8? Most of the time, though, I was in the depression phase, in bed, crying, feeling like I wanted to die. Sometimes the medication took away my ability to feel at all. Someone asked me if I had any warning signs that depression was going to hit. That's one of the worst things. I never know what tomorrow will be like. It's always there waiting to ambush me. I can't plan. I can't count on anything. Good days make it worse because I know it's only a matter of time. Sometimes I hate to go to sleep because I don't know what I'm going to wake up to tomorrow. Then came the day. I was home alone all day, exhausted, worn out from trying, and angry. Very angry at God. I had done everything I was supposed to do. I had gone to Christian counselors and a Christian psychiatrist. I had done everything they had told me to do. And I had prayed. I had been faithful. So where was God? I thought he owed me. Why wasn't he taking care of me? I knew what the promises were. Why wasn't God holding up his end of the bargain? I began to pray out loud, sobbing. I was done. I cried out to God. I even screamed at him. Hey, God, do your job. But I didn't even have the words to tell him my pain. It was just a groaning. I told God, somebody has got to pray for me. I can't even do it anymore. I can't say what I need to say. I don't know what to even pray for. It was at that moment that I felt Jesus wrap his arms around me, and I knew that at that very moment, Jesus was interceding for me before the Father. I knew Jesus was praying for me, just like it says in the book of Romans. I could feel it. I felt this comfort, a comfort that I can't describe, and peace. I felt peace for the first time in a long, long time. And I wish I could wrap up this testimony with a nice, pretty bow and say, and I got up off that couch and never fought depression again. But that's not what happened. I fight depression every day, even now. But I'm reminded of what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12, 8 through 10. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." So my testimony goes like this. My name is Robin Bergen, and I battle depression every day. I have asked God to heal me. And his response so far has been no. But my grace is sufficient for you, and I will go through this with you. Some days are good, and some days are horrible. Sometimes the medicine works, and sometimes it doesn't. But when I am weak, he is my strength. And when I run out of words to pray, he even prays for me. In the Bible, there is a long list of people who lived their entire lives looking forward to the promises of God, but died before they saw them fulfilled. God commended them for their faith. I know now that God doesn't owe me anything, but he will keep his promises. I know that one day God will heal me. If not in this life, then definitely when I meet him face to face. Until that time, I will live trusting his promises that he is always with me. He'll never forsake me, and he is my strength when mine is gone.